Yeah, we're going to do this one a little different. Last month we had it where it was the panel and nobody else could really talk. And we had a little pushback on that. So we're going to try the opposite end of the spectrum now and let people openly in. If it becomes a problem, we'll come up with some happy medium between the two, raising of hands, whatever. But hopefully we won't have any one person monopolize the conversation, including me, or get a little aggressive in opinions. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, we're just 1 minute in, so we'll just give it another moment or two. But...
Yeah. We have 7 people. Last month we had 60, so I have a hunch other people might be coming on.
Hopefully. I know that some people in the Slack had brought up that roUtils and the message passing one, roRenderThreadQueue, whatever that one is. Both of those are showing errors in VS Code right now. I'm working on getting that updated. So hopefully I should have a release out today. We'll see. Not tomorrow, but I mean, it'll still work, but it's just, you see a red squiggly, people freak out. So we should get rid of the red squiggly because there's nothing wrong anymore. Yeah. I wish I could, we haven't added any settings yet to BrighterScript or VS Code extension to say what the target device is, because generally you don't have control over the device operating system. They're all kind of force upgraded for you unless you've got some kind of beta that you're in. So I don't know. It just kind of our policy generally has just been it'll be right in about 6 months. So we'll just figure it out sometime in there to make them accurate.
Yeah, I had no idea they were. I mean, all mine updated this morning, and really didn't know when it was going to happen. I was actually expecting it to be a week or two before they updated.
Yeah. What OS version? Did you join the beta, or did you get it just kind of naturally in the wild?
No, just naturally in the wild. I'm not in the beta because, again, I'm just writing a small piece of a library, and I don't want to accidentally use anything that's not going to be distributed. So.
Yeah, I got a couple of them that are on 15.0.4. Is that what version do you have?
All my stuff's 15.0.
15.0 without a follow-up dot on it?
Right. Okay. But again, I'm not on beta intentionally.
I must have a beta.
I'm just your average grunt user.
Nas, you convinced us. Everyone can be a contributor. Welcome to the club. I didn't set it up before the meeting though, so I have to invite everybody, but hopefully by next time it'll work.
Yeah. One thing about 15.0, I think they are rolling out more now, not in beta anymore, because I can see in New Relic in the app I work for, there is already around 10%, almost 11, of people using OS. So, and because our app is really widely distributed, and this is not developers or anything or beta testing, is really out.
Yeah, I had 404 get updated, so I'm assuming a lot got updated. Or I don't know, they update by ID, or is the fact that all mine are on the same email account mean they all get updated together? I don't know.
Yeah. As I said to you, Scott, the advantage of having in the beta program is not to actually use the new stuff, because the new stuff, I just use it for curiosity and also, of course, for the simulator, but it's mostly to test backward compatibility, because it's not it's not uncommon to have issues. I had several issues over the time. In particular, since I would say OS 12, they started really making major changes in the OS and also in BrighterScript in general.
What I've thought about doing is grabbing a second Ultra, putting them both on my system here, and then I can, kind of one on beta, one not, and I can bounce back and forth.
Exactly. So you can verify, because sometimes you have time to tell them to fix things.
Yes.
Mostly they postpone. They say, oh, 15.1. That's okay. Yeah.
If you really want to guarantee it, just unplug it, leave it in your desk every time you need to lock into a version, and then you plug it in. You can check for updates and decline to install them, and then you can have that for the day for fun. Just don't leave it on overnight or it'll update.
Well, Bromley, I can get you to mail back that Roku 4 I sent to you.
Yeah,
and
it's
that
over there.
Yeah,
Yeah, the idea behind that one was I wanted to set up a whole benchmark suite with a bunch of different strength devices, like some older ones and some newer ones. Just haven't had the time to get to it, but I've got like a whole benchmark suite that I run locally anytime I want to find stuff. So I was going to have it run nightly and publish like the benchmark report, so we can have like you should use this style of programming for this kind of functionality that you want to do, based on these 3 devices that we're running nightly.
Yeah, I don't want the 4 near my other Rokus because they might get dumber by osmosis. It's just a weird thing.
Is it a risk to have it underneath my NAS over there that's going to like fire to all of my hard drives?
It's just going to make them slower and dumber and run out. As you can tell, we're not fans of 4s. So, well,
all right.
Kind of get rolling here.
Probably go ahead and get started. We are recording this, and so we will publish this call onto YouTube. I'll try to get it up tomorrow for those who can't make it. So I guess I'm talking to you tomorrow.
And this one was going to be about nodes, and this was before 15 release that we put the topics together. So we were talking like content nodes and tasks and rendezvous, all that. But now with 15 out, that kind of changes the game, because now we have more flexibility and better messaging from the sounds of it. I haven't messed with any of it other than the deep copies. But sounds like what I knew about nodes before this meeting started is now less than there is to know about nodes. But the idea was to discuss, how they work, when to use nodes versus associative arrays, how to minimize rendezvous, things like that.
And we should still talk about this. I think it's worth still kind of going over some of that stuff, and then we can kind of slide into some of the. And now that you learned all the rough ways to deal with it, here's a couple of ways to mitigate as well that we're releasing.
Yeah, and also we'll take time for the major apps to get to 15, right? Because I was consulting, like at least in Paramount, I think Paramount Plus, we are stuck in 11, or I think Steven said me 11. In my app, the BET Plus is 12.5, I think. So most apps are conservative, right? So it takes time to catch up with like the OS 15. So there is still a lot of things to be concerned about, rendezvous and all that stuff before 15 gets consolidated, and this new stuff also. And I don't know if you all saw the rant I went, me, Nas, and Luke, like during the weekend, but it's worth to take a read over there. We didn't touch the messaging. We just basically talked about the new some of the new methods, but not the messaging. The messaging is very interesting. But I did not test it.
Where were you chatting about that? What channel?
The bug
bug reports.
Bug reports. I reported actually some documentation issues. Then the rant started talking about
we got
how things work. Yeah.
I'll find your messages in that.
Yeah, but it was fun. Like, it's worth to take a read before it disappears in time.
That's a public one. So we back up all the public ones. I have it on Google Drive. So I think somebody was working on maybe finding like some type of like web renderer to like have them historically.
Yeah, we need a knowledge base. We lost a lot of good conversation in this Slack.
Yeah, I don't have any backups of private chats, but anything that's in a public channel, I have all of that since the beginning of the Slack. It's all in there somewhere.
Cool.
If anybody wants that, let me know. I can provide that as well.
I have it half-baked, and I have been using it and pasting sometimes, but I mean, that's just me. But yeah, it's doable, it's workable, and I think it's valuable.
I like your who's been using the face palm. That was probably my favorite post of yours.
Oh yeah, I did some stats. Yeah.
Yeah, the messaging I want to take a look at, because before, if I wanted and this is a terrible way to do it, but if I wanted a task to return data to main thread, but the task was long running, so I couldn't really have the main thread wait, I would do silly things like write it to the file cache and then just watch to see if something came up, file magically appeared. Terrible way to do it, but it worked.
I remember you talking about that. It was a
Oh,
way to
horrible, but it did work.
you're gonna burn out your
Hmm?
depends on how you're writing it. You may burn out your flash.
So there is
Yeah.
no actually writing the storage like
Oh, it's
the
all
only
memory.
thing that's permanent is the registry.
Okay.
And I assume the flash is so solid now that we don't really have to worry about that like we did in the Roku 2s or 3s. I assume the chips have come a long way. Used to
hope
be,
anyway. We'll find out in another 5-10 years.
yeah.
How
Well,
many- how many-
minimize your rights?
Scott, how many devices is using that feature?
That old stuff I wrote, long gone.
Oh, okay. Wait to see.
It was really more for some testing code, so it wasn't really something that would ever make it out into production.
I would say temp is better for messaging. And this is ideological, actually, because both temp and CashFS are in RAM, but I mean, CashFS can get deleted at any time, right? So that doesn't help the messaging purpose. And temp would be okay as long as you act fast, meaning thread write, the other thread reads and deletes, right? Like you don't just continue creating files.
Right. And I think I actually was using temp. I said CashFS. But now that we have what looks to be a viable message pump between threads,
So
that is
actually,
a much better potential.
Actually, we don't, and we do. The messaging API specifically currently only works between render thread. The messaging, that sounds like raw message port, but I will try to lobby Luke to see if can add, at least my suggestion is to add ability to do like observe field with ports. Right,
Okay.
because currently it's a great messaging. The purely messaging is great messaging, but it's limited only to render thread.
Sorry,
Sorry,
go ahead, Luke.
no, it's not. So it's not limited. So anyone can post to it. Yeah, so you can post to it from a task node thread, or from main, or from the render thread as well if you want. That's all
Hotel
fine.
California, yeah.
Only the render thread is the only destination, right? And because it's intended, you've got this queue, and it's the same queue that is used for observers. So, for example, it does mean that if you wanted to do something like, I want to post a load of messages, and now I get to a point where I really want to know that the render thread has done a thing, I can then do, a regular rendezvous, and I know that rendezvous will be processed by the render thread sequentially after all the messages I've posted. Yeah, which is quite useful. So it is specifically for doing that. But I think NAS really wants. I think NAS, you feel quite strongly that, and I have a certain amount of I think you're right that you want to be kind of doing stuff off the render thread, and so because there's no easy way for task nodes to communicate, that is kind of a problem. And I think you had a proposal, but I can't remember can you tell me what your proposal was? I can't remember what it was now.
Sorry, what my argument?
Yeah, what your proposal was for the
Oh, very simple. So we have observe field, right? And observe field has two ways of dealing with it. One is observer functions. The other one is observer ports, right?
Yeah.
So in the same way as the new API, the raw, what was it? The render message pump thingy, right? The same way that you register functions there, should be able to register ports.
Oh yeah, it's the add message handler.
Yeah,
the name of the method. Yeah, so
that's
yeah,
it. Like as API.
good idea. Yeah.
I don't have it in front of me, but I remember when I looked at it.
So we add a message handler, and instead of it being a message ID, instead of it being a function which will get called back on the render thread,
The handler, the handler now is the only functions. But as he said, in Observer, we can add a function or a message port object that could be handled in any place. Yeah.
And since you can call it from any.
Is there a Slack channel? Are we on the Meetup Slack channel?
Yes, there is Meetups.
Yeah. Can I write code in there real quick?
Yeah, go for it.
I've got a really loud keyboard, so I'm going to mute briefly. because I was just going to hear me clacking.
I'll need to look at the API and I can type it. I think I have
Yeah,
typed
it's add message handler. I have it in front of me.
So back to Scott. So the new messaging, like Luke said, works great, except it's like Hotel California. Everybody can send to the render thread, but nobody can receive back from the render thread, right? And I have ideological objections to that because it actually puts more burden on the render thread that we should be trying to unload than to load, right? Because it does too much already. It does the messaging, it does all the data transfer handling, and it does what the name says, painting, right? Rendering.
The render thread was always the thread that the function callbacks ran on anyway, right?
Yes,
Right.
we don't use message ports.
So it would be nice for it to be, right now it sounds like a multi-consumer or a multi-producer single consumer. It'd be nice if it could be more exposed.
If there could be multiple consumers, yes.
Yeah, if the threads could see each other's messages potentially, or at least the threads see render messages. Threads, tasks, you know what I mean?
So
Yes,
you're
we can
saying
do
the basics sound like this is what you pasted in there. I'll bring it up. It's
In
really
Zoom.
risky to share my whole Slack screen, so I copied and pasted it over.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what I'm doing anymore. Anyway, yeah. So you pass in the port just like that, and then those events would show up on the port in whatever task you're listening to them in.
I could see that being really useful.
Yeah.
I do have,
What kind of implications for like moving data? Is there any, I wonder, because right now, I believe these would transfer ownership of the objects that you are sending as the event. And so there would need to be concessions made that it makes sure that it can properly transfer ownership back. So like, I think a lot of the time when nodes are made in task, like content nodes, I believe you can make them in task and leave them there until you transfer them. But if you were to like transfer a content node back over, I'm wondering if it would be just as flexible, if there's going to be issues like with the implementation. It's not just as simple as putting on a message port, but they have to eliminate some assumptions that have been made about the way data was going to flow.
Yeah, so the nodes are always owned by the render thread, except for I think node and content node, like basically the non-render nodes that haven't been transferred to the render thread yet. Once they've been transferred, it's also a one-way thing of now you got a rendezvous every time you hit something on it.
So just coming back to Naz's suggestion of the add message handler with a port, would it be any use if you could just call post message on a message? Oh, because that's the problem you always come up against. There's no good way to pass message ports from okay.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, if we could send message ports around, that would probably.
Yeah, it would.
Scott, did you look at one point? I thought you had sent some messages about actually using like sockets between the ports or like that for communication.
the last time I did sockets on a Roku was actually pre-scene graph.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we were trying to do ad stitching before any of that existed. So we would grab all the M3U8s, combine our own discontinuity, big M3U8, and then feed the Roku. The Roku would literally feed its own M3U8, so it would have an output port, and then it would actually connect to itself. It worked very well. But that's the last time I messed with sockets on a Roku. I tried to do it as some time back. I needed to ideally send some emails from my Roku, but that's a dead horse. You're not going to send TLS emails out of a Roku. Ain't going to happen. So that one I hit a brick wall hard. Other than that, I've not messed with sockets on the Roku. But yeah, early on before Scene Graph, I was using them very heavily because the Roku was its own server to itself.
Mm-hmm.
It was a weird run, but it worked well.
Yeah. So one thing, I mean, besides this messaging thing, one thing that was introduced also was the moving data and reference data on on the SceneGraph nodes. The moving data is pretty straightforward. Like you move in or you move out, like specific field data, like, and you get it. But the one thing that I found weird in reference is that, like, you can set reference, like, which means I can get an AA and set. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, that's exactly what I was looking here on the side. Yeah, so if you scroll down for the setRef, there's setRef, can GetRef. Yeah. So one thing you should notice is, like, say, field observers are not notified. So once you do that with a field, that field cannot be observed anymore. And then if you do a set field, a regular set field on it, it will lose the reference. It will create a new one, a copy. So it's kind of weird because you can have, I mean, the weirdness that exists now is that, like, for at least for me, when I started SceneGraph, was very hard to understand why I could set, like, if I had a field that was an integer or a string, I could set it directly. But if it was an AA, no, I would not, because if I set any, actually I could set the whole AA, but if I set a field that is inside that AA, it does nothing. Actually, it doesn't give a warning or anything. It just does nothing because you are just setting a copy, right? When you do something dot AA field, that's a copy. So it worth nothing. So that's very, well, I bet every new developer that gets to SceneGraph get hurt by that, and they realize that they need to get the AA, do the changes, set the field again. With this setRef, you don't need that. Once you do setRef, you can even set, if you can even get the original AA, set it, and the field is updated because it's a reference. That's great, but there's no notification for observability. So that's a drawback from the whole thing. So I know that would be use cases, but I think this would make it way more confusing, the whole thing about fields, because you wouldn't. I think one good thing is that they added this can GetRef, because you at least know if that field is on which state it is, right? So if it's on a reference state, which means no observability, but you can access it directly, or the other way around, right? So it's
and just to clarify,
it's confusing.
The observability hasn't changed. Your interaction with the field has changed, because you would still get notified if you did another setRef, I believe. It's just that
No. You need to do a set field. As for in my tests, once you put setRef, any change to that object, to that field, will trigger anything.
If you go, so sorry.
Go ahead, Luke. Go ahead. You know more than me. I just did the test. I don't know what's behind. Yeah.
What I would expect to happen is that, like Bronny was saying, you call setRef, and then you call GetRef, blah blah blah, and notification's not going to fire. If you now go and do myNode.field equals new value, then that's going the old regular way. That should trigger an observer, and if it doesn't, that is a bug. But if you do myNode.field.subfield.thing, so poking into the thing, that will not trigger any kind of observer, and it can't really.
Let's clarify our terms a little bit. We're using the word field, and I just want to verify this is more like property. The field is an AA here.
Yeah.
And this is a property on the AA, right? Because if this was a node, certain node notifications and stuff might actively. So I just want to clarify. Let's use the word property if we're talking about an actual prop, and then field for actual SceneGraph node fields. So, but anyway, this is what you're talking about there. You set an AA with setRef or whatever.
Can you blow up your fonts?
Oh yeah, sure. I can zoom in a little bit.
Thank you.
Right. So we did field. Is that good enough?
Very real.
I'll go back to my dev summit with only 20 lines of code. I have a headache by the end. It's great. It's so big. I don't remember how to do this, but like you set it to some object, right? So then in this situation,
so I would not expect it to behave recursively. In fact, I would consider it a bug if it do, because it will create too much churn there, which, by the way, already happens with SceneGraph. I forgot what it was with. Was it like update or something on content node? No, nobody can relate.
So explain that a little bit more detail. What do you mean?
Okay, so you're trying to type whatever Marcelo was talking about, right? And
Yeah, I was
kind of
typing what Luke was talking
answering
about.
that, and Luke said that if you, when you use setRef, you will get a callback, but not when you modify elements inside the AA.
Right.
And seems like Marcelo's intuition was that maybe you should get callbacks on that too.
Yeah, because I think if you, I mean, I think Marcel's probably expecting you to do so, because if you were to, yeah, that line 6, I would expect line 6 to give you I would expect line 6 to give you for the observer to fire.
Really? I don't think that's true though, because if you're grabbing an AA off of this thing,
but the only,
it's
if you
a
just do
clone
the
to
normal,
get the AA, and then he throws it away as soon as you're done assigning a property to it.
so I would have thought that,
No, that's sorry.
you only get the reference access if you call setRef or GetRef.
Like if this is the old style right here, right? Let's forget setRef for a minute. My node.movie equals some associative array. When you do this, if it's an associative array, you don't get an observable notification on that, do you?
I used to have to put a change field.
No, of course not.
The change field to trigger observable.
In order to trigger that, you need to do something like this, and then copy dot value equals that thing, and then you need to do my node dot movie equals the copy of it, right? That's how you'd have to do it typically. So setting deeper AA
that's what I'm
properties, I wouldn't
saying,
expect any notifications.
I think it may
because
depend
that
on
was a copy. Because you are the other way we were talking. You just changed it, but the other way you're showing, you were just handling a copy.
Oh,
Right?
no, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, you're just handling a
you-
copy, and then that's why it does not trigger. But with the reference,
okay.
if you change, let's say, put that instead of putting a variable like the play state, the movie AA, instead of like make it a variable, an AA variable, yeah, movie, and then
Yeah, movie equals, yeah.
yeah, this perfect, yeah. The AI wants to teach you what.
I'm like that, right?
What you do, yeah,
No,
exactly. So when it's set ref, any change you do in the AA will be reflected on the actual field. So it's good, right? Because you can have, right? So that's the whole purpose of this. But it will not trigger any change, that will not trigger any update, even if you do a set. When you do a set ref, at this point, if you had an observable for movie, it will not work. So you will need still what Luke's saying. You need still to do the old way. Like if you want to trigger, you can still observe, of course. So if you want to trigger, you still need to assign the whole field again. Right. But when you do that, you lose the reference. Because if you do set field, if you do set field, you lose the reference. I know, I tested that. That's the thing that is confusing for me.
Right.
Yeah.
Some common way that something that both you and Bronley touched, and this is a legacy, things that are done badly in the past. One is, and Bronley pointed out that maybe we should talk about fields and properties to be clear what is happening. And what was done badly is that the access by a dot is used both for fields and for properties, right? So it's very easy to miss that one when you are dotting along the line, right? But and something that to you, Marcelo, was hard to do until you wrote JavaScript interpreter, right? And start paying close attention is that actually that dotting does a complete copy. It's crossing. What I like to say is like crossing the border between Azerbaijan and BRS land, right? It's crossing, and even when you assign it, and it's kind of like that's a big short of like when you say assign the field. The example that you gave is like a field dot property, and you change it, and then you're like, why didn't it change in SyncGraph? Well, it did change, but it changed in BrightScript, and it immediately gets disposed after the end of the statement because you're done with that copy. But so the issue there is that there was never a warning, and there is still not a warning, right?
Yeah, and it's very hard to pinpoint. And in this scenario, the thing is, if you do any assignment to that field, that is like it will overcome the reference, and then you lose the ability to change the original object because you just reverted that. So it needs to be, it's very useful, but people need to understand exactly the boundaries and what's happening, because then you don't like expect that I have an AA that I set by reference, and then at some point my code made an update on that field to trigger an observable, and that reference is gone. So you will need to know that and work around it. Yeah, that's
what
just an
happens
important information.
if we do?
Yeah, I'd run into
I
the same
think,
thing.
you know,
You didn't hoist and then resave, you'd lose your changes. So it reminds me.
Well, I mean, you would you could also
If you
do
then if you need a notification, then what you really, and you're using GetRef, then you probably want to create another field that's a Boolean, and you poke that, and then that's where you run your observer from.
Luke,
Yeah, I think it's a good compromise is like create a field for triggering. Yeah.
Luke,
So-
when you call setRef, is it copy it in or move it in every time?
No.
So when you call setRef, all it's doing is it puts it into, I mean, it's not even a move, it's just adding a reference. It's almost the same as if you write some code that just says you've got at line 5 you've got movie equals blah. If at line 9.5 you said movie 2 equals movie, it's like that.
Yeah, well, how I did, it's good to understand, it's easy to understand how I did on the simulator implementation. Basically is a new state of the field, right? You have two states of the field, is by value or by reference. If it's by value, every time the user access it, I copy it and give it back a copy. But if it's in reference state, I give the exact object I have, and then they can use it, right? So that's it. So, but at any assignment of that field, if I get an assignment and it's not by reference, it will change the state back. So that's it. Like, you need to understand, field has the state, two states, reference and value. By default, it's value. If you set reference, and the way you can see is using that can get ref. So that's important. Like, but needs to be very clear. That's why I asked it in the bug reports there. I mean, when we do that's still not documented because it's still like in beta and everything, and it's still. But whenever it's going to be documented in the actual documentation of the SyncGraph, I think it should be good. Put good examples there, so whoever's learning will understand this, because it's now way more flexible, right?
That.
Now it's flexible.
Why not? I don't want to.
I don't know. I think you're basically create a loop.
The reason I ask this is our problem right now is we have lost the ability to trigger an observer when we've changed things.
Mm-hmm.
And so if there was a way to do something like this, where we say, I'm going to set ref, it's the same thing you already had. So just tell everybody you can follow like the always notify true false feature or something like that. I think that would get back almost all of the missing functionality if there was some way to just be like,
no. No, so is it look, does setRef not trigger observers at all?
No.
wait, so there's a first one not trigger it either. If you were observing movie from the first place and you'd call set ref, does that not trigger it either?
None of those will trigger observers.
Oh,
Is it
You probably don't
doable?
want it to. You don't want it to, because when an observer runs, it will always take a copy of the thing
Okay. Touche.
Okay.
And for the line that says what happens with this, I'm assuming that mynode.movie is actually a copy, right? Or is it undefined behavior? I need to check that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I
Divide-
just don't do
Don't do that.
Because to do that, you need to do GetRef to get the reference.
Yeah,
that's the
I don't
only
know
way.
what happens if you do mynode.setRef, mynode.getRef. I have to admit, I haven't tried that.
Do you have to call GetRef, or would this actually? This would be.
Black hole.
This is this.
That will do it. That will get a copy. So as Louis says,
That is a copy. You must do GetRef.
so that'll be fine. But if you do GetRef like that, then yeah.
You
I mean, if that
Yeah, but the thing is, you don't need to do GetRef if you keep the reference everywhere, somewhere else, right? So you can keep the object. The
Right.
GetRef is useful because if you're in a part of the code that you don't have access to that variable, or but if it's an M, like you put an AA on an M dot, and then that is a field, you can work with that M, that object in everywhere, and it will reflect on the object. So it's very flexible now. I like it. It's just that there are some quirks that we need to be aware of to not hurt ourselves.
Yeah,
Right,
because
so
now there's nothing stopping you
Why?
from like setting that as doing a setref there on some sort of node, and then you can get two different nodes calling GetRef, keeping that reference and then manipulating the object at will. So that's a lot of flexibility. But yeah, because there's no observability there, then,
Except
that's a new pattern.
the elephant in the room, except this only can happen on the render thread, guys. So setRef, GetRef only work on the render thread, which is again my issue that we are burdening the render thread with more work now. I'm not saying let's not do it, because this is good, but keep in mind that task threads cannot do that, cannot get
so
there.
there are two models that we could support for task threads. One of them would be where after you've called GetRef or setRef, once you call setRef, that node can never be rendezvoused across to the render thread ever again. It's like quarantined in some way. So maybe if you try, you could imagine that maybe the field just gets.
But look, that won't work again because two threads won't be able to do this. It will be locked within a single thread, yes?
So that threads would not be able to communicate via setref or GetRef.
Yeah,
Once
so
you-
kind of not very helpful.
But
I'm not saying
there's no way that you could. There is no sane way that you could share references between two separate threads. That's just not possible.
Yeah.
What you could do is you could arrange that refs would work within a single task thread. And that would then do is you then quarantine that field. When you send it over to the render thread, probably it just gets dropped on the floor and it shows it empty on the other side. That's really the only thing you can do.
Or the render thread will steal it.
Or the render thread steals it, but that involves a move and is going to be order n. So it might give you surprising performance characteristics.
That's true.
So every time I come up against this question, it then occurs to me that, hang on, do you actually need this on task threads anyway? Because the thing about a task thread is you haven't got loads of components where you're trying to get stuff across component boundaries to the same extent in the same way you do on a render thread.
Kind of like the render thread where everything is running in the same context, right? So anytime you interface with scene graph is when you need to poke to the render thread to send something or get something from there. But it's kind of like the render thread in that sense that everything's just the global AA is going to be the same. So it's not really, there's not going to be much advantage on GetRef and setRef and setRef there, I would say.
Yeah, that was sort of my feeling. The other thing that I also had a suggestion, somebody suggested, is that you could call setref on a task thread, and it would still only be like, it would still make it only set it up for the render thread, but it would rendezvous it across. So it would be like a set you do on a task. If you're on a task thread and you call setRef, it would effectively take the data you give it, move it into the into that field, and now it's ready to go with this. It's ready to call GetRef on the render thread when that node eventually gets to the render thread.
But there is already a function for that. It's called MoveIntoField.
You move into field and GetRef, because the move into field. Yeah, so that's yeah, you can synthesize it with move plus GetRef. I'll move on one side and get. So that's why I think that probably it's certainly not obvious to me.
So actually, setRef should not do any moves, because that's dangerous, because it will be ripping things you haven't asked it for. It's implicit behavior, right? And you may have things disappear. So I wouldn't support
having a function called setRef that's quietly doesn't move.
I have a question, Luke. You said observe fields. Observers get copies. Why do they get copies? Can't this be fixed so that if you're observing a setRef field, they will automatically receive a GetRef instead? Hypothetically.
So possibly. I mean, the problem is the documentation says that. So well, the code takes a copy, and the reason it takes a copy is because observers have this promise that they will give you the data that was in existence when the update happened.
Yeah, but this is a new cloth. Like until now, there was no setRef. Now setRef is being introduced. It can bring a new semantics. Like it's not that you magically have to be compatible if there is a great benefit. There may be a great benefit there. I'm not sure. For now, I'm just asking about feasibility that observers that are ports and functions could automatically receive GetRefs. Not let's do it, but like just technical feasibility, hypothetical. Over.
Okay, so then that would mean that when you call setRef, the observer would fire, but it wouldn't. It would know that you've given up on that promise and you're happy to just take a reference, and you just get references back.
Well, not you have given on this promise, but you as observer has signed into the new world.
Yeah. Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Where you get ref.
Thought.
And I think when you observe things as well, though, you can specify additional fields that you want. So this would have to apply not just to the thing you did observe, but also any other fields that you also wanted to be given a snapshot of at the time. But I think it's the same concession.
Yes, not necessarily concession. This is actually, I don't want to put it as to downgrade it. This is an upgrade, right? You're actually getting a fast track, fast bus between different components on the same thread. That's what this is. Like Luis pointed out something I don't think people are paying attention. Right now with setRef, you could have different components having zero toll data exchange between them on the render thread. No copy whatsoever. It's super fast. It's also a bit dangerous, to be honest.
Yeah, you need to be mindful what you're doing and understand that, because as I said, like any set on that field will make all disconnected, and it's hard to debug and to get that. Yeah. And then I don't remember. I just remembered, Brownlee, about these like additional fields, which is also, I don't know how that does it affect. Look, this reference. How does it affect this reference? I mean, you're gonna get the, if you had that in a list, if you observed one field that is not referenced, and you have the reference field in the list, it will come as usual as a copy in the event. Okay.
Yes,
I suspect so.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I have like PTSD of implementing these additional fields in the simulator. It was a nightmare.
I don't think it's very commonly used, although to me this is something that can be very beneficial, I have seen it being very beneficial when writing RAF, because what happens there is that the video node you can think as a state machine like FSM, right? And especially when you are processing events serially, you want them serialized. Like, you know, you have playback events and you're doing it on ports and you may receiving them delayed. So one of the issues that we faced is that, I'm just getting position event, but if I directly check with the video, turns out that the content from which this position event has arrived is not there. It's actually showing the next content. So things can go pretty bad unless you have a way to receive a snapshot together with the position. You also receive the other events, right? So that's why this was added. And people, if you are using observer functions, you kind of don't care because that's synchronous handling. But if you use ports, then that matters to you.
Yeah. I think that there's a potential here to expand this to like an additional property, which is like, what should I do? Should I give you snapshot or should I give you referenceables when possible? Something like that. And that would potentially let you work the old way, but opt into the new way. And then you could look at your observers before you do the work to know whether you need to do clones. Anyway, we don't have that today. So.
No, but this is actually when we get a chance. This is actually when we get a chance to give feedback and actually think over it, right? The more heads, the better. I think. And I don't know if this is necessarily helpful. It's just an idea that popped here, right? That if observed fields can receive the GetRef magically, and in the way that we are talking here, I'm kind of like, well, maybe it should have been a different field type, the setRef GetRef, right? Like a ref AA or something.
So would you want an observed field by ref?
I wonder, but then I want to admit that I like the explicitity of setRef and GetRef, that you actually say what you mean, right? I have shared my disdain about dotting. I don't like that the dot does magical things between field and property, like completely different things. Over. What?
This ish.
Oh, yeah.
Right. That's essentially the semantics would be clear that you're touching field versus prop. That's the essence of what you're articulating there, right?
Yeah. I mean, the problem is that isn't, in a sensor, that isn't what's going on. Because AAs implement the same set of, as far as Brightspeed is concerned, there is no difference. It doesn't know that AAs just get you by reference and that nodes get by value.
Right,
yes,
they're all like IFSOS array,
correct.
or whatever it would be. Yeah.
Only on that collateral thing. Yes, I actually think that it would have been better if, say, the @ symbol was used for fields. So it would have been very obvious what you're doing. The thing is that people, when they start typing, they just keep dotting, right? And they don't realize that one of those dots there is very expensive if you're on a different thread, right?
@ is already used in XML. I don't think a lot of people realize, but @ is used in XML.
I mean, it'd be easy.
Who's using XML? Show of hands. Who is using XML recently, and who's using
I use it in old stuff, my old games. There's a lot of like stuff that was XML. But I mean, what I mean is, like, I understand what you mean. It's different, like semantics, like, and the @ symbol could mean the same, like.
Yeah, and like you said, even the fact that you're trying to modify, but that would require extensive changes to the interpreter, that you are trying to modify something that you just received from a field as a copy, that in a perfect world should generate a warning immediately there, right? but knowing how interpreters are written, it's kind of hard to keep track.
Yeah, or a
with the
warning,
value.
or even do not allow, like it be read only, right? So if you are getting a copy, it's read only if it's assessed that way. It's just like a radical way, right? So the warning would be good enough, I believe, because that was again my first experience with SceneGraph was awful because of that. I had no idea what was going on because some fields would update, other fields would not, and I would not understand until I realized that objects are different. Because the thing is, if the field that is a string, if you do dot, the field equal, it works because you are assigning the whole, field, right? When you're doing dot with AA, you're not assigning the whole field. You're actually trying to assign inside that AA. So that's the confusing part.
Yeah, if cloning wasn't a thing, like if, for example, we got to a semantics, let's say a manifest flag that's like, just do GetRef everywhere all the time. I'm rewriting my art from scratch. I trust it. The dot suddenly semantically makes sense again, because it doesn't actually matter to me that it's a field or an AA. What matters to me is that I'm traversing through like a coherent chunk of things. And so like I like that the dot for the
from this example,
of a future where it's sane again.
Yeah. So from this example you have in the screen, like it's obvious, right? So that if everybody will know, if you put like my node at my field equal, it will update the field. But if you use dot, it will, after that, nothing is updatable because you are dealing with the copy. Yeah, it's very right. It will be very
like as usability goes, right? It's not great. I mean, we know why it happens, especially when you write an interpreter. To you, it's kind of like obvious, it's a copy. But as a user, as a developer that is innocent in that, it's like there is so much confusion, especially this one. You know, the translation, the translation field, like people say, oh, not dot translation 0, like for dx plus 5 plus equals 5, and it's like, why doesn't it move to the right? And now try to explain to them that they did modify it, but it was a volatile thing.
Yeah, so in 16.0, you just got to go, I'm making this up, by the way, I don't know this at all, you know, sane get refs everywhere, and then all of a sudden, yay, magic.
So would anyone use that, or would everyone be too paranoid?
I think to turn it on in the middle of a production written app would be crazy. But starting a rewrite, for example, like something like this completely changes your entire design of your application. When I can set, like, I don't need to make content nodes for 95% of my data flowing around, for example. And now all of a sudden I can set like a full design system on like top node that just reads everywhere. I think it would be incredibly useful for a rewrite of an application in BrightScript. Yeah. But it would be risky for some people to flip it on. I don't know.
Luis, don't raise your hand. Just talk over. Everybody's talking over each other, so don't.
I don't want to interrupt. Yeah, but it is. So I'm a part of a very large team, right? 30 plus developers or something, and it's often that I get a PR. I open a PR and I review it, and I see someone accidentally making a copy. They haven't realized that, you know, node.field, it's actually a very large AA. And it's often one of the pitfalls where no one is really aware of the hidden cost behind. They think they're just accessing a property, right? So and they're actually not. They're just making a copy of the field. So yeah, having something that makes it more consistent.
So if you did that, you would have to solve the problem what to do on task threads, because it'd be very confusing for it to be for sane refs to work on the render thread, but to be not working on the task threads. That would be really confusing. And that'd be worse than it is at the moment.
There could be a since almost all nodes except for content nodes are owned by the render thread anyway, there could be some type of get cloned function that when you actually the moment you try to touch a prop like that on the, like when you set this flag on, all of a sudden you get hard fails in your task unless you do this other magic thing, which is explicitly give me a copy of that thing because I know that I'm not allowed to touch anything on nodes. Like I think there could be some safeguards in place to keep you from screwing it up.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
removing dot access for fields.
Sure. Yeah.
That's a radical approach, right? But it does make things more explicit.
Oh, well, just remove the access entirely
Just remove the access entirely. Yeah.
and just have a
So
hard
guys,
fail.
what we didn't mention here is also the other APIs MoveIntoField and MoveFromField, which allow task threads to send data. And the way it works there is that the data get ripped from your thread and assigned to the field, so that on the other side it can be received with MoveFromField. That only works on AAs, not on arrays for some reason. Well, I know the reason. The reason is it needs to be implemented. But something to keep in mind is that your variable that you did move from field and the word is move, that variable gets zeroed out, right? But it's done in such a clever way that it actually checks if there are any references in the tree, and if somebody else is pointing inside the tree, it would copy it. So this is something to be mindful about, that if you really want to do a move, you should make sure that your references are, you're not pointing with other variables inside the tree. It will still work, but it will be expensive-ish, that it will clone those parts of the data that are still pointed by other variables.
Yeah.
But if you didn't do that, then it's very fast. Basically, it's like takes it from one thread and then gives it to the other thread.
One important thing is this: it returns an integer that tells you if he copied anything. So if you want to be safe, you check this return of the field, because that was something that I only noticed. I implemented this and I didn't notice that, and I said, "Oh yeah,
That's
you
very
need
clever.
to keep it does keep the reference. If it had to copy anything, you're gonna return 1, 2, 3 the amount of things. So then if you want to put safeguards, you can put it like that. Oh, there's something here.
Yeah, it's a clever one because it's non-obvious. I mean, you can do it in debugger. You can see the references if you're careful. But
and it's funny because I implemented this counting of references in a simulator just to have the stats on the debugger. But now I found finally a useful thing to use this reference count, because it was for nothing, just for fun, because it will be like something JavaScript does do that for me. I don't need that reference counting, but now I use it with this function, because now I return the number of copies that happen. Yeah. But yeah, that's an interesting thing. We need to start thinking about the use cases we're gonna use in our app.
And I think the other semantics that we probably need to ask ourselves, and I'll probably someone will test this after this meetup, right? Is after you move into field from a task, let's say, in the render thread, can you use GetRef right after, or do you have to extract it and then setRef? Like that, those are the interesting behaviors we'll need to explore. I'm not sure if it's automatically a ref when you move into field. I'm not sure. But
You need to if you do the move into the field on the render thread, you do a move from, then setRef with the result, and then you're in business.
you cannot do GetRef immediately? Like, why not?
Because it's still inside the field.
It's
No.
not. You don't have a reference. You don't have a reference right outside. You don't have a reference for that object outside. You need to get it somehow, and then you set the reference, because there's no way you can only get copies. You get ref. That's how it works. I'm not saying it's not possible, because you could do a get ref. You could potentially do a get ref for the internal object, but it's not that. That's actually why we have that can get ref, because it's like, as I said, it's like a flag. You set if the field has is on the reference state, that's when you can get the ref. So yeah. That's how it is. It could change. We could get the GetRef. We could have like a force parameter saying GetRef force, and it will get whatever is inside the field or something like that. But
Oh, that's an interesting idea. Whatever's there, make it ref. I like that one. Make it ref. That's an interesting idea.
So that's it.
We did do that. We did
not
do
make
that.
it ref, but get me the reference of the internal field.
So currently,
Luke, what were you saying there?
So currently, setRef modifies. So currently, setRef endows the field with that property. And then question was like, if GetRef should do that, but that's probably too aggressive. Over.
Yeah, if GetRef just if you had a situation where GetRef just turns it into a reference, the problem with that is that you've potentially got a task thread that's accessing the same field at the same time, and now you get into all sorts of horrible problems.
No, I'm liking it because
the reason I know that is because that's what we did originally, and we got into all sorts of horrible problems.
And then you return false saying, I couldn't do that.
Your suggestion
or returning valid or something.
I'm kind of
I'm joking. I know it's complicated.
I'm probably okay because your suggestion is near zero cost, right? You said move from field and then setRef. That's quick, right?
Yeah.
Well, is it though?
It's pretty quick.
You're probably only paying the cost of the rendezvous, right? If you're moving into a field and you're crossing threads, you'll still pay for the rendezvous. But yeah, it's other than that.
MoveIntoField is expensive because it has to do that order end walk of all the objects, and it doesn't take zero time. Move from field is way faster. It is just switching over a pointer and then updating some internal bookkeeping. So move from field is fast, and setRef is also fast.
What? Sorry, why does move from field expensive?
No, move from field is cheap. Move into field is expensive-ish. I mean, it's still way faster.
Right. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
So
you just walk that tree to find. You have to walk the tree to find all the loops, and that's not cheap.
So to clarify, if you are in a task thread, you move one of your associative arrays onto a field on a node. That is a transfer. It's transfer of ownership, so that's cheap-ish.
Yeah.
Then on the render thread, if you want to get that thing without cloning it, you have to call move from field to pull it out, and then setRef to put it right back in.
Yeah.
So what we need is a function called refify that just says it's already there. Just make sure it's refable. Whatever's there is refable, so that I can just not have to do this.
No, but it's just two things, right? I mean, you just said it's calling two methods. Like, why burden it with bogus functions?
I think I'm thinking about it from a perspective of I'm not entirely sure in this situation if it was a ref or if I already did it. There could be events that fire because of this, or because of this, or because of this. And so we end up having code that we might have to just do move from field every time and setRef every time. But if I had one function that's like
this is but the implementation will do exactly what you said. So basically you're asking for a macro, and I'm like, well, just do it. Like, why do you want a macro from BrightScript?
I mean, can get ref will tell you if you've already refified it.
Yeah, you have that. You have that for this reason, to check the field state. Guys, I have to go. Sorry, it's time. I have to get lunch, but it's very nice to see you all, and hopefully we can do that more often.
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. I think for me, it's just a user experience thing. You're absolutely right. I can make a helper function or do this or 2 or 3 lines, but like your code starts to bloat out pretty quickly when you have to do like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 line helper functions here and there and there and there. And like, we have to write lots of code all the time. And so some of these things, I don't know, I just like don't want to have to write 3 lines of code every time I want to do an operation. I want to call the intended. In this case, it's 2. I know. But just that's why we have semantics. Yeah. That's why we have functions instead of copying and pasting the function everywhere, right?
No, I hear you. Let me say this then. If it proves to be useful, it's very easy to be added at a later stage, let's say in a version or two, right? I would say let's not rush adding it just because it sounds useful, since we still haven't started using it, right? Like,
Yeah.
When you get like pain points and you're like, you know what, this really must be there, it can always be added, right? Because it doesn't change semantics. It's syntax sugar of sorts.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, that's fair. That's fair.
Because there are many things that can be done, right? Like you could do a special field, reference field, instead of those new methods and so on. But should you? And then supporting all of that is costly, because once you add it, then it needs to work in perpetuity.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing just to think about with the blind sort of move it and setRef it is that if you have got a task thread that is also accessing it, then you've got a window where it's empty, which might not be what you're looking for. Might be quite surprising.
Can you expand upon that a little bit?
No, you cannot.
Oh.
Look, you cannot, because it's access is atomic, right? So you're doing this on the render thread. There could not be in Bright script another render thread running.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Unless you insert some extra lines in between, in which case it's your own fault.
Yeah. Is that true?
Yeah, because yes,
true.
because all of the servers are handled synchronously on the render thread. I mean, they are just close, right? I mean, I don't think there is. Yeah.
I mean, I think, Bronley, what you're really saying is that wouldn't it be great if we had a utility library written in Bright script that was just lived in GitHub somewhere, and people would just put this in there.
I mean, you could do that for sure. I mean, we don't have a great delivery mechanism for the libraries. We have roPM, which I like to use, but there's concessions to be made with that. So like, we don't have the NPM equivalent on Roku right now to be able to distribute like reusable code easily and nicely. Like you can copy and paste, and then you got a version. Like just there's friction in getting those utility libraries into projects, maintaining them, keeping them up to date, and so we haven't really seen those types of things catch on. But you're right, we could provide those recipes for people, put it on roPM for people to use. I just don't. I've seen most projects that I've interacted with people with. They start a project, they have a utils file. They start their next project, they copy that, they paste that, and they copy that, and so like all the sharing is just like among dev shops rather than pulling in community stuff. So somebody would probably go out, copy it, paste it, and use it. And I mean, yes,
yeah.
But that's like arguing for source control, right? Like saying, oh, okay, we have Git, but nobody is using Git. Then it's like, well, I mean, what do you expect? I have a question. Isn't roPM just a door into NPM?
It is a little more than that, but you could water it down to roughly that. So the problem that we've solved in roPM that you don't get with plain NPM is prefixing. The fact that if you, go ahead.
Let me clarify my question. My question is like, I asked it in the sense, isn't roPM just an entry into NPM? Therefore, we already have NPM. Like you said, we have roPM, but it's not sufficient, or people are not using it. Like, what's the reason there?
I think it's mostly people aren't using it. And either I've got some shortcomings that people don't like it and they're not telling me why. Or it's just that they have Roku has historically not had a lot of community support. The way that JavaScript came out with ecosystems and people joined together, and there's standard practices that the entirety of the ecosystem uses. We have make files and bash scripts to build projects, and we're slowly getting people to use some of the Node.js scripts, but I don't know if it's a majority. And so then you also throw in version control, package management by NPM, but it's prefixing, and I don't know, it just hasn't cut on, probably for a multitude of reasons. I would love for it to catch on, but.
So your answer, or at least my question, was like, it's not that there is problem with roPM and you need a new package manager. It's just like there is no culture, there is no, what's the word, practice of
Yeah,
using.
I think that would be the big. Now, we've made a bunch of, how do I say this? If I could put a feature request together to Roku, I wouldn't propose things to make RoPM work better. I would propose a module system so that half the stuff I'm doing in RoPM doesn't need to be done in the first place. Like NPM, for example, every time you import a script, it's kind of self-contained. RoPM, stuff just dumps in the source folder, dumps in the components folder. You've got to ignore the stuff that you're installing. I've got to rewrite functions, rewrite parameter names and variable names to all that collide. So that's kind of one of the things about
so
it.
you're saying kind of like JavaScript, like import modules, that is part of the language, something that, say, if Roku had a library keyword that you could use?
Yeah, something like that would be great, where it pulls them in and you can potentially name it.
And that's, by the way, the hidden joke there is that Roku actually has a library keyword, but it's not open to use. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, no, I've seen that in our Alexa. I think in the docs there's something about library being one of the words that you're either not allowed to use, or it's one of those you can make it a variable name, but it's still a reserved word or a keyword or a.
You use it with RAF, for example, but
Yes.
it's a Roku written library.
Yeah.
Over.
I think Luke is muted.
Yeah, Luke, I can't hear you.
All right, yeah.
Luke's choking that we
Yeah,
have
I'm not sure. I think the main problem with the library keyword is that only Roku can really deploy libraries. There isn't a way in your manifest to be able to say, I want to have this, like, Roku, I want to say, I want to depend on this library over here. I guess you've got DCLs, haven't you? So you can pull in DCLs, but then.
Yeah, that doesn't help with functions, for example. That you can only pull in like scene graph components. There's no way to leak out functionality. Those.
Babe, I am on video, but it's built.
Yeah, I mean, something. The one of the big challenges though is with RoPM, we have to do prefixing, and so if you had even just library, my script.brs, if that just leaks everything into your current scope, that's only solving half the problem, because you could have function collisions. You've got 5 different library authors that all use the same function name, you still have a collision problem. So you'd almost need to do something like that, where now I could do my lib dot all of the things that it exported. We got that. I think shareable code would go a long way on this platform. And that's what I tried to solve with RoPM. And again, just it hasn't caught on. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
It need to be similar to the same paradigm where we have with JavaScript and TypeScript by extension, where you import something, and you can import the default, or you can import something specific, and then you export on the other side, right?
Yeah.
So as far as BrightScript is concerned, I think it's not too much lift if there was an ask that you set like library to import particular file outside of the source of the /source, right? Where it gets tricky, I think, is where you set with the dot, with the designator or whatever you say, because I mean there is no such concepts. I mean, in BrightScript there is the concept of namespaces, right?
Yes.
But not in BrightScript. Okay.
Right. And the problem, namespaces on their own don't solve the issue of RoPM, because you can still have 2 library authors that use the same namespace and they still collide. So we would need it. But you're right. I mean, we don't have like everything that you use a dot on would be like a local var is how it is in BrightScript right now. Yeah. So there'd need to be some type of. So, I mean, I think a lot of this thing could be done at compile time to know what these would be ahead of time, because you're defining the name of the thing up here.
Ronnie, you were mentioning adoption of RoPM. Part of it's people like me that, because it's not an official thing, I've just never gotten around to looking at the thing. It might be, Nat was asking before, that little link library I have. I could put that in there where it's shareable. Right now, I copy it for my different projects. I just put it up on GIST at NASA's request. But yeah, something like this, I could make it out where people could embed it, and it'd be a lot more automated and all that, and would be a lot better. So the reason I haven't adopted is I just, with everything I got going on, I never got around to looking at it. It's not an official Roku doc thing. So it's not something I've ever messed with.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many other people like me that just kind of the out of sight, out of mind. I haven't adopted it because of that.
We may have to do some thinking like what would be easy to implement for Roku about library, about those namespaces and stuff, right? Like not like completely complicated.
Yeah,
I mean, like I said, it would be easy to ask, for example, to be able to do library and then you do a relative path, right? So effectively you get in BrightScript what you get in XML, right? But you're saying here that's not enough because I get clashes.
correct. Yeah, because I'm not. The only way this wins is if I can pull in other people's code that I'm not in control of. And the moment they name something that doesn't work with me, I have to change their code or my code to make theirs work. Or if I'm pulling into different libraries, well, I can't control either of those now. And now you're back to collision. So it has to be collision management.
The other problem, sorry.
Go ahead, Luke.
I was going to say, so is it enough to have something like line 2, and then that would prefix all the functions inside my script with mylib,
Yes.
and that would be enough?
Yeah, that would be enough.
But
The
then,
compiler could do that. I
but
think that
then
would be
do you
enough.
promise? But then do you promise in your code to call them with mylib underscore and the names of the functions?
You have to.
Well, if the compiler does it, we don't have to. If Roku supports this, then they don't have to.
Yeah, the tricky part is obviously that BrightScript would need to say, right, all the things inside my script.brs where foo goes and calls bar, that would work just fine. But outside, you'd only have you'd call foo, you'd call mylib foo, and you call mylib bar. So that's the only slight wrinkles. Otherwise, it'd be.
Now, if there was a way, so your concern is more about what's inside is harder, or the one on the outside is harder? Like inside my script.brs, not having the prefixes, that's what's harder, right?
That's a bit trickier, yeah.
Right. And so if there was some concession of inside, okay, so we're going to go inside of.
No, so I have a question. What if you import a function with the same name from 2 different libraries? How are you going to call it from inside the user code?
So if I've got a function, so mylib1 and what happened there? You'd be mylib1 and mylib2. So mylib1 dot function.
Both of them are defining foo. Okay, but so how is this an improvement? Because
inside of this, so inside of my script.brs, they have defined
sure.
That's the benefit, is that
are you saying but are you saying that if there is no conflict, you want to be able to type foo and it magically work?
I don't need to ever be this one here says maybe we would do that. That was just an idea. But I am okay that for libraries, you will 100% of the time must put the prefix of the library you imported. I think that's
so therefore, so what's the problem to use underscore there instead of dot?
Because I don't control the thing in front of this. And so to library, so just to clarify, you asking what's the problem for Roku using underscore?
No,
library authors.
No, for the user of the library. What's the problem? What you just type there, change it to underscore. Change it to underscore. Is that a problem?
That's probably fine too. I mean, I like dot because it gives you namespaces semantically. Editors support completions better. But for the sake of argument, that would be fine.
So, so this would be relatively easy to implement, I think, what you just showed there. So when you say library prefix, right, and then the string, and then it will compile it, it automatically tag the new prefix with underscore, right? That would be relatively easy to implement.
But the problem, how do I say this? You might call this something different. I might import this script in 8 different components. And so then this prefix might be different in all 8 components.
So
but don't you reuse compilations without changing their name? So you'd have some weirdness there with symbol tables and.
Why would you do that? So each library with a different alias there, we'll just compile it anew.
Okay.
Now,
Yeah, then now you've got 8 copies of the code. Which is
yeah, what I was going to say, like,
That's and that's okay, and that's arguably okay if you insist to 8 times import it under different name because hypothetically you meant it. Over.
If you get into like what I see in like Rust with cargo, you'll import a small library and it uses 27 others and they each use 6 others, and you just imported 2 megabytes of code, not meaning to. If I import a library and that library writer used NASA's HTTP system, and then I import another library and that library used, Bromley's HTTP system because they're using libraries, and with the very limited code space Roku has, could this not in time become a space problem if libraries started addressing libraries, as is done in all the other package manager systems?
I would say the current state of things, which is roll your own HTTP system for every app everywhere because we don't have a way to share, is probably a worse place to be at than being selective with the libraries you choose to pull.
But what happens is, and again, I'm using Rust because it's the ecosystem there gets kind of wild. You got 17 HTTP systems and everyone picks their one. Now, eventually one becomes the standard, but that takes time. So suddenly I have my HTTP, if you import a couple libraries, you are importing several of the systems because he used A and he used B. Now you get into where you have several components, you're bringing them under different namespaces, all that. You could end up with a lot of either duplicated or the same intention code done 3-4 different ways. And again, on some of these larger apps, like I deal with DSP and all that, and you got, Marcelo deals with Paramount such, you're already talking very large apps. And if we go to a library system that doesn't have, I don't know how to say, some kind of way of avoiding that, I could see us hitting those program size caps.
Sure. I hear what you're saying, but I think that's
the cure is still better
than job to police. That is the community's job to police, and or your project manager's job to enforce that we are being same with the imports. I mean, sure, I could see it getting out of hand, but also Roku devs we got a 4 megabyte limit on our package sizes.
Right.
We're pretty. You got to be pretty vigilant.
And I mean, if you're just doing code, that's a huge size. For people that are embedding a lot of images, all that, suddenly the size does get a little tight in some cases. I've never had it personally, but I've heard that it has.
So guys, I was just thinking like what is doable, and to me it seems it will be relatively easy to have like library without an alias, right? Like to consider opening it to developers as long as the import happens within the package, within the local thing, right? That would be relatively easy to do. And then the other one was like you're saying here, you're adding an alias, and that would be relatively easy to automatically prefix with alias underscore. And the fact that you're using alias implies that you appreciate collision, because otherwise you wouldn't use the prefix, right?
Right.
And then on top of that, it can build or plug. Let's say the Brighter script can plug the namespaces there. Maybe. I don't know. Yeah. I'm just saying what is, and there is no promise by anybody that it will be done. I'm just trying to do a chunk that could be swallowed, right?
No, this is perfectly reasonable. I mean, I like dots better, but I'm not locked to dots. If we get this, that solves all of our collision problems, and we can now.
And then I would have thought line 12 would work already. I'd expect that to work today.
I don't think it does.
Does it not?
Look. So currently, library only works with what is manifested, right? And here the talk is to be able to include from your own package source.
Or shared packages.
What do you mean by manifested?
Oh, like with RAF. With RAF, you say what
Oh,
was
right.
like
Like
a
a
bslib
slide it or whatever.
import.
Yeah, because right now library can only do Roku assets.
Yeah, I tried. I saw how you do it with RAF, and I tried doing something similar, and I could not find any combination that allowed me to turn one of my folders into a library. I've done a bunch of iterations, and maybe there's a magic syntax, and we can get it all to work out of the box. But
back when the RAF code was exposed, I tried looking in it to see if there was something in there that allowed us to do libraries. Roku closed up the RAF code to where we couldn't see it anymore sometime back.
So
but there was a time we could see it.
that,
Like, okay, how are they doing this? There was nothing there to tell me.
To explain that, and it's not great secret, the way it works is in the code of the library, you say there's a keyword that says export. The opposite of the bslib import, there is, I'm giving the wrong term, but let's say it's bs library export. And then when you publish this channel, it becomes available. But the reason Roku may want this secured is because otherwise anybody can publish libraries completely outside of control, right? But here we're talking about something else, which is like local module import.
That's why Roku no longer likes the component libraries, because I could get one approved and then completely change my CL to something else that did not go through approval. And I don't even know if we're allowed component libraries anymore. I remember that Roku was not happy about them.
I think so. So I think there has been abuses, and when you give something that powerful, there will be abuses in which you're supposed, when you change your app, to submit it for approval, automated or manual, depending on how important it is, right? So some people instead will do, because it can be slow reviewing and approving. And by the way, recently there was in the forums talk that, hey, for LG and Samsung, it takes 3 months. So you guys bitch about Roku being slow? Try 3 months review turnout, right? And then you will see what. So what people invented was like, okay, I will just publish an empty shell of an app that all it does is load the DCL and then call the do the do function. And that's it. And then they get disapproved by Roku, and from there on for 5 years they never submit new package. All they do is they keep changing the DCL without any reviews or testing. Over.
Wait, I thought Roku was going to kill the DCLs. I thought I heard in the grapevine once that because of that abuse, Roku was trying to remove the DCLs. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but I thought we were going to lose the DCL ability.
I can't speak to them in like public apps, but I know that we use DCLs quite heavily in our QA process, like local dev channels to test and stuff, which is really flexible. I don't think it would make it through cert though, which is fine. So yeah,
okay. I was just going to say, I've actually thought of doing a release of RTA using component library to allow you to like, because obviously you wouldn't want to include it as part of your production application,
right?
But being able to have like a way to have like a special deep link or something to start it up in the production application would be awesome. When you run into certain weird cases.
Yeah, that's great.
So
Luke, were you trying to say something like 10 minutes ago?
Yeah, I'm intrigued that the library thing at line 12 doesn't work, but I feel like it could probably be made to work. I mean, Nas is saying that saying rightly that it's probably sort of tied off, but I think if you just want to load a library thing that's in your package already, and just so that you can then use third-party code, you're not bypassing all the cert, because the actual code is still going to end up in channel stuff. So it feels like it ought to be a useful thing to do and doable. The trickier one is the one at line 10.
Yeah.
And I do worry about what does happen. I think if we just naively took the existing library code, people will end up putting that into every, you'll do library utils.brs in every single component, and now you've got 50 copies of utils.brs.
Yeah, because that's what we would do. In writer script right now, we do that. We have library name.
Guys,
I think that's good. Sorry.
This is already the case with XML components, right? They
Yeah,
can
and
put all of their carp there and then just say, except you say the same thing in XML.
yeah, that gets deduplicated. But I think the library thing wouldn't be deduplicated. You'd end up with 50 copies, probably.
And what we do in BrighterScript is I roll that up to my XML transpile stage. So I essentially do deduplicate it because I only put one import in per however many imports I found of that same name.
Yeah. But what you could maybe do is come back to, I don't know whether this is possible. I am just making this up as I go along, but you could have an RO library object, and you give it a path and a prefix. And now, well, in fact, you just give it a path, and every time you go and do RO library on a path that's already seen, it just returns you the one you.
Are you saying it would be like this? Something like that?
Yeah, mylib dot. So
I
mylib
think
dot.
the challenge of that is we're going to want, for the full flexibility of all this, we would want the ability to have these functions available as observers, for example, or to put them on other properties and objects. Like they're so thinking about it from RoPM perspective, of course, that's weird to use observers from other libraries, but using this as our import system for local code to import utils everywhere, we have a couple of observers that we link to that are shared observers for scopes.
You won't be able to take, because that's going to return you a thing, and you can call thing.foo, but those are not real functions.
Here is the tricky part with create object. Look, this requires runtime compilation. Yes.
Yeah, that's also true.
I'm not saying that it's less performant. I'm saying that.
That's fair.
And connecting it back to Bronley's, the other thing is because in SingGraph we have call by name convention, right? So for observer's point, you will need to register them as functions and not, let's say, return an array of.
Okay. I think that, yeah, if you convince me, that's not going to.
I'm not killing it. I'm not killing it. I'm just kind of mulling,
no,
right?
Right. It's going to be really not what you want. You want that. You want the library thing at line 10, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we need it up there because we're gonna be calling util all over the place, and I don't think people are gonna be okay.
Like Nat says, it won't go through the bytecode compilation process.
Yeah.
So,
no, you could have like static analysis that scrapes.
Oh, actually, no, that's not true. It would go, no, it would go through the bytecode compiler because the bytecode compiler. The bytecode compiler just, for the most part, just goes and says, I'm just going to go find anything that looks like a BRS file. I'm going to replace it with a BRSC. I don't care.
But would it do it here?
No, probably not.
Right. So it does it for every file in source up to X number folders deep. It's like 10 or 8 or whatever it is. And then it does every file that is included as a script import, from my understanding.
No, it just looks at everything inside components.
Oh no, you might be right because when I was publishing source maps, it was choking. Yeah. Okay.
So it looks at everything, and then I think there's one other directory that I can't remember the name of, where it also goes and looks for.
And it also goes in component lib, right?
That's the one, yeah.
Look, can we? And because this is still not documented, I trust this is still not documented anywhere, but I think we should say it at some point.
Yeah, I should go and create some. I did actually. I've got an action somewhere to go and document this. Yeah, I think it's. Is it component libraries?
I feel like that's the name, Nas, that you floated before. I think it was that. We didn't see any benefit to using that folder when we tested things. So it might not be the right name, or I did it wrong, or I didn't understand how to do it. You had said to put DCLs that you're bundling with your package in that folder.
The zip files, correct. And at the time I gave it the exact name, but I did not feel authorized to talk much why. But
yeah, I remember that. We did some testing and it didn't seem to matter what folder it was in. I had it at the root. I had it in there. I could be wrong. It was a while ago. And again, we were only using it for like testing purposes just because I was curious.
But hey, on the other hand, it doesn't hurt to put it there, right? Like
It wouldn't hurt.
if you have a like, I don't think it's enough. If you feel it should be component library singular.
Right. I think it should be component libraries, like you've spelled
Yeah.
it.
No. What I'm trying to say is that or if you feel it should be all lowercase, it shouldn't be that difficult to accept this particular name, right?
So you're proposing that we find the magic folder that exists or make a new magic folder that exists to put these things in so that they do get bytecode compiled, so that if we were to use this syntax, they could already be prepped, right?
Oh,
That's
not just yet. Not just yet. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is component capital libraries. So if you're saying
Luke is saying that something like the create row library may be possible, and it would benefit from the pre-compilation.
And so then the create object row library is effectively just taking the precompiled bytecode and sort of putting it into a namespace. But the problem you still got is that the thing it returns is an object with which you can call functions on, which is super duper, but you can't pass them into observer callbacks. You can't, because they haven't got a name.
Yeah.
So
well,
I think
you can, but in a silly way. You need to create a shims, right? Placeholders.
well, actually, what we do, I'm going to make up the syntax a little bit here. If you get access to the function, it's like toString and then .mid3 to cut off the. You can get the name of the function this way, and then you can pass. We do this for.
If it's just a faked up function create returned by this object, then that ain't going to work. And also, why is it you have to pass in a string and not just the function in observe field?
Yeah,
I've been asking that for 10 years.
Why is it, Luke? Why is it?
I looked at the code and I thought that'll be easy to. No, I'm back, and then I backed away from it.
No,
but I don't think there's any fundamental reason why it shouldn't.
Look, you're throwing me for a spin because I only thought recently that I understood why that is. That being that in SyncGraph, all function calls are by name, right? And I even measured it, and turns out that in SyncGraph, calling a function is twice as slow as calling it in the context of main, right? So I thought that's why it is, and now you're saying it's not.
I think it predates that. I don't think it's anything to do with that. I think it's just.
Look, if you send us all a copy of the code, we'll be glad to take a look at it all.
Okay, I'll take that as an action. I'll do that right after the.
Do you know C?
Doesn't matter. We'll learn.
You know how much we love to see the code.
We'll ask OpenAI to explain it to us. Yes.
Yeah, it's okay. We just upload it all to ChatGPT. It'll learn it all for us. It's fine. I'll use my free version so that it learns it all.
Okay.
For everyone.
Yeah.
So something like this, it sounds like it's fairly straightforward if you were able to just dump everything here into the current scope, the same way that you'd have. A question. You have a compilation process. Would it be feasible for the compiler to build this list of script imports, and then as you're walking through them, anytime you encounter one of these things, slap it onto whatever array you're keeping of the things that needed compiled? Like basically, like you don't have to parse like you just need enough to, because I think this is a bit of how like all of your JavaScript imports need to be at the top, because there's something statically analyzed about them for compilation purposes. So I feel like there could be like a phase in the compiler that would be able to collect your imports and do them in the right place with the right amount of deduplication without too much extra lift. You just need to get them
You're talking
in here
to
somehow.
compiler.
What was that, Scott?
You're talking a 2-pass compiler.
I guess. I don't know. I don't know what the flow is. I mean, it already scans this thing and then figures out what's in here. I mean, like one recursive step to just make sure that you've gone through and looked at these things imports and these things imports while you're building this list. Feels like it wouldn't be too much of a lift to just build a list of more things. for the simple case.
What's the benefit? What's the I'm missing?
I was thinking like this is going to require a decent lift to get the compiler to prefix things, et cetera, for all the things that are imported. It might be dynamic. You might not know how to do them as bytecode, but whatever logic figures out to do them as bytecode in the first place and what scopes they belong into, and skipping the library's expensive do it each time. You can statically analyze these at the top of the file the same way you statically analyze these to figure out which ones to bytecode compile. Or maybe I'm wrong about that. I don't know.
Let's go in and have a look at it.
Yeah, well, that would be awesome. Now, if we got this version, for example, the non-prefixed version, you'd still need something like roPM for the sake of prefixing, because this is not going to solve collisions. But this, I mean, I think tons of VrideScript developers would love to be able to put their imports at the top of their file for what this thing depends on, as opposed to having to go out here to do it. So even setting aside like library sharing, even just like ease of use.
Well, I'm just surprised that doesn't work. Like that line 12, I feel like I take it you've tried pkg:/source/myscript.
Yeah, I've tried them both. I'll go try again. I'll put it on my list to do tomorrow, but I feel like we tried a bunch of permutations of all of this.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think it works. And I mean, there is no particular reason it shouldn't. Well, the reason is that nobody implemented it. But I mean, I cannot see any ideological or technical reason without aliasing why this couldn't work. Over. Now, this is more, I do find the raw library interesting as being more powerful.
Say that again?
To me, it feels the raw library idea is more interesting and being more powerful, because theoretically you could use dynamic names of what you're loading, right?
So you're saying this one is more powerful right here?
No, I think he's saying line 15.
15.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. Because the problem here is if you're going to do this, you're going to end up putting it on M, or you're going to have this code everywhere in your application. And so I feel like the semantics around having libraries up kind of statically at the top of the imports, similar to C# and JavaScript, like all of those types of things, it makes more sense to me to have a name.
But just to be sure, and I'm sorry, don't want to offend, just to clarify though, that would be static, right?
Yes,
The
this
alias
would be static.
in the files, and the URI will be static.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Now, I mean, obviously, like JavaScript supports dynamic requires, where you get a variable from something, you build it, and then you do require, and I don't think that makes sense for this platform.
Yeah.
In my mind.
And it'd be great if we could have HTTP on there where we could pull shared libraries off of wherever source.
I know. That'd be nice.
There's no way on earth Roku's going to allow us to do that, because there's
there's no way anyone would abuse that. No,
not at all. No. I promise I won't use it for evil.
Well, that's okay then.
Roku's not worried about 99% of us. It's that 1/10 of 1% that are going to act the fools that create these blocks for all of us. And that is what it is. There's no way around it.
And I can share that I have seen that happen, abuse, and not even in piracy, like in potentially distributed denial of service thing through DCLs. I just, it's not right for me to go anymore in details. It's just we saw the potential of it.
You're always going to have your idiots that act up. And it's unfortunate, because then you got to put limits on all the people that wouldn't have acted up in the process. But that's just everything. That's normal.
And one of the things, just waxing poetic on it, is that let's say you use DCLs and not your DCL, but some other vendor that gave you a DCL, and maybe they are good people, but they are lousy about their security. So somebody gets their credentials, and now they can upload a different library to the CDN.
You have that problem with other things, like, again, Rust Cargo. You can have the exact same problem. Somebody can replace something. You don't even realize they did it. Your program compiles, distributes, everything's fine. Not realizing that that one package 4 levels deep of the 800 packages you loaded, because of all the nesting, had been replaced by something nefarious, and you have no idea. Well, it happens.
Yeah.
And Roku has found a way to shut it down, but it was, by truly shutting things down.
I don't think it's shut down. You can still use it, right? And I think alternative should be provided if the direct
No, by
HTTP.
shut it down and access, being able to pull, be it libraries, DCLs, or whatever, from a shared resource off the web, like a package manager or something. That's what Roku is shut down. We can't pull external data into our, or external code into our code at runtime.
I think DCLs still work.
DCL, okay. Again, I had stopped using them because I had somehow got wind that they were going to be shut down, and I might have just gotten wrong information. And
Yeah, I'm
it's
pretty
been
sure they still work. Because
well,
I
2
believe
years now, so I don't remember where I got it from, but somebody said, yeah, they're killing that. It's been abused too
So,
much.
yeah, there has been such noises made. I think Kent may have been making those noises.
Okay.
And I
took that
think,
as gospel and I shut down DCL use.
and this is speculation on me, right? And I have been away for this for a while, but I think probably Roku is trying to suppress the dangers of random libraries being downloaded from HTTP anywhere.
Right.
But I think because of common use, an alternative will be provided where there could be put in a curated way, let's say in App Store.
Yeah. And that would make sense. But then,
I don't think should get discouraged as of totally don't even think about it. More about think about it in a control manner in which you won't be able to change it any time of the day.
well, based on what I had heard, I completely abandoned DCLs. And I was only had one project that was DCL based, but I converted it to a straight embedded project, where if you want to use this, just embed this code in your components directory. Because at the time, I honestly thought DCLs were about to be nixed. Right or wrong.
so I found the example of library that I had been remembering. So this is the way that I've seen the library statement used in the past.
Right. I just assumed that was just nabbing code hidden somewhere in the firmware of our device. That's just sitting there on every device distributed, and we're saying, hey, you got this code here outside of our package that Roku's provided. I want to use it.
Yeah, and I think this dumps these functions into whatever scope you're currently in. So you can do this in one of your files in source, and boom, it's everywhere in source. But you would have to, I think you have to do it in at least one script in each of your components that wanted to use it too, I think.
I don't know.
It's been a while since I've investigated this. I just decided not to fix it in brighter scripts. Just didn't, there were higher priorities to figure out how it worked.
Right, I stay corrected. You're right. So there is one case in which it works, and you are showing it. There is a mounted, like I don't know if it's file system, but under a lib something. But this is nobody is maintaining that one. I mean, it's it was done like over 10 years ago, right? And you don't get to put your own stuff there either.
I always thought RAF was similar, that when you brought in RAF from the manifest, it was pulling that RAF is sitting just out in the firmware of my Roku waiting for it to say, hey, I want to use it. And we used to be able to get it and print it and look at it and all that.
Yeah, these are the functions that I have in my unit tests for what it exposes. There might be a couple more.
The way it works, and let's talk a little bit, but the way it works with RAF is not only RAF, there is one or two other libraries, is that it gets published separately as a plugin. Like you can see it with you can list it on port 8080, right? And that's how it updates on its own.
Mm.
Okay.
And then when you say library, it imports. But that's the mechanism that it gets published like an app in App
Right.
Store. I guess the only difference is that it's not part of the firmware as once or twice a year. I'm sorry, twice a year. I'm sorry, more than twice a year.
Yeah, the public OS releases. It's
That
more.
does look like, that does look like we ought to be able to make add the ability that you can just do library lib/bsl call it BRS. If that isn't that already possible, don't know. But yeah, the bit that you want is the ability because that doesn't, just having library blah doesn't, if all you're doing is dumping stuff into your package, then you haven't really achieved anything, I don't think. What you want is the prefixing.
Yeah, no, the one benefit is with library, I don't know how the bytecode stuff works, but just semantically, right now for RoPM as an example, we have to put files in the source folder or in the components folder. So I have to clutter your actual code. And so you have to add like git ignore semantics to be like,
Right.
Ignore some of these special folders in here that are libraries that I load with so being able to put these in like .. or like, pkg my libs / would be beneficial.
Yeah, I see. Yeah.
Right. So that still is, I mean, if you could get this to us without this, that is still a huge win. It's just not the full win for package management. It's a little better. But
yeah.
Something like
I'm not experienced with package manager, but I have a question and people have told me, and I think somebody has suggested, don't you want to actually bake in your source control the version with which it got compiled? Meaning, like, yes, I understand you use RoPM to ROP it, right? But don't you want to like include a snapshot in your repository?
JavaScript projects, as an example, you have your package JSON and your package lock JSON, and those two things specify what version you had when you built your project.
Yeah.
And so conventionally, for all the projects that I've been involved in, you don't commit node modules. You commit what packages you wanted to do, and then you would install the modules anytime you would clone out the project, or you switch branches, and so you npm install again. So we don't. Some teams do, like there have been pushes from some of the security sides to be like, well, because of all these security vulnerabilities and stuff, we actually want to commit everything, because then you only get updates when you intentionally install them and nobody installs anymore. But so generally we wouldn't commit these, and we would advise generally with the way we set it up that you wouldn't. You would just, there would be a package JSON and what versions did you want, and then keeps your history kind of a bit thinner.
So you rely that npm repository will always be there. Like
correct.
Yeah.
And I mean, historically, it has been over the past decade or two. Like, I know it could go away, and there are mirrors places, and but I mean, same thing that you depend on. Was it CocoaPods and Nougat and.
There was a famous case 5 years ago or whatever when some guy removed his simple functions, right? Like
in npm. Yeah, somebody. Yeah. So
it was a two-line. It was a two-line, totally stupid function.
Yes.
And turns out that 10,000 project included it, and internet broke. Yeah.
Yeah. So what happened is he had a package that some big organization was like, we want that name, and npm gave it to them because they want money, or I don't know, for some reason. And in protest, he deleted all of his packages, I think.
Yeah.
So now
you specifically, it was some trivial function, something like trim right, like string trim right.
Yeah.
That removes all the white space on the right side or something.
Was it left pad? Is that what it was?
Oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Left pad. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, they npm specifically has you can no longer delete your packages if you have published it and at least one person's installed it, or it's been alive for an hour. Some semantics around that. They don't go away.
Reference concept.
What'd you say?
kind of back to the reference count concept. The
Yes.
reference count is greater than 0. You can't get rid of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's.
So you're saying that something like library package :/xlib/ Michael library / myscript.brs might have some benefit. What you really want is the prefixing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is if you think that there would be.
I think that one is pretty straight. I think that line 18 should be pretty straightforward.
Is there a performance impact in having this in 1,000 files if it's the same script? It's the same.
I don't know.
What devs normally do is they'll have that import utils everywhere, and so people won't do it if they're like, well, every time I do that, it actually slows it down. I'd rather put it in XML. Like I think there need to be concession on it.
I don't know whether. I don't know whether it will go and deduplicate or not.
Okay. But I mean, if it's like 10 lines of code, I think it's still better than nothing. People can decide on their own if it's worth it. I think that's great.
I mean, eventually people will end up with giant, and we'll have to, yeah. I mean, once you open that thing.
I mean, most of this functionality is already available through XML, right? The only one that is hurt is the main function scope. I mean, as long as there is no aliasing, right? You can already do this with.
I have to drop actually quite soon.
Yeah, we do this already in BrighterScript. The functionality exists on the platform in some capacity. It's just semantically, if you're not using a preprocessor or a transpiler, then you have to manually edit that list yourself. All the places that you're using it. So import util.brs, you have to put that in every XML file as opposed to putting it above the 3 libraries that might actually use it, and then it trickles out. But yes, you can do it. It's just a little bit more maintenance.
Oh, I see.
Oh, you have to drop, Luke. Is there anything else you wanted to say? We should I mean, we've been at just 2 hours. We should probably.
Yeah, it's 2 hours. We're over time a little bit.
No, but it's been really interesting. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Appreciate you being here.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Same time next month.
Okay. See you then.
We'll be here.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, everyone. We're gonna call it.
Yeah.
See you later.
See you all next month.